work,
Right.
they're going to be scratching their head.
They might not like it.
They might not understand it either.
And why? Like,
Yeah.
is it the chaos? Is it the messiness?
Yeah.
What is it making you feel is an interesting question.
Yeah.
And I think we're too consumeristic where we think, I just want to go and feel good, when you might think instead, I want to go and grow. I want to go and be challenged. I want to go and think some new thoughts or meet some new people. Those are much more open-ended. And even if you hate it, some of my favorite art stories are things that were so outlandish, but boy, were they a memory. And we had a great discussion afterwards at the bar.
We don't necessarily have to be right about a piece, or we don't have to like what our friend there says, oh, that's kind of cool. And you're like, I don't get that. Wait, it's just spatterings of paint on a wall. But that's okay, right? I mean, art evokes that from us.
The very latest on economic development, workforce, and industry sector news in Southern Colorado. Here is Business Digest Weekly with our host, Dirk Hobbs.
All right, good afternoon, Southern Colorado. This is Dirk Hobbs, and you're listening to the Business Digest Weekly. Today is Friday, October 4th, 2024. It is 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which means toddy time. It is toddy time. It is, okay, so I'm going to grant you permission now, because during the month of September, I was a bit edgy about this with the pumpkin spice thing. Too soon. Too soon for me, all right? I'm still enjoying summer. I'm ready to go to the beach or the mountains, right?
It's 90 degrees.
It's 90 degrees.
Here in Southern Colorado.
That's exactly right. And so people were all excited about pumpkin spice, and I'm like, no, just stop the bleeding, okay? Anyway, you're just 2 short hours from happy hour. Those beautiful voices across the deck for me are Angela Seals, Executive Director of the Cultural Office of the Pikes Peak Region, a.k.a. Copper, and Dylan Craddock, Program Manager for Creative Economy here at the same organization. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you so much for having us.
I'm glad you're here. I'm going to do some quick news here, and then we'll come to you, because we want to talk about the role of the arts in our economy as it relates to employers, employees, retention, development, attraction, all that good stuff, because it plays a critical role in how we continue to evolve and build attraction in the Pikes Peak region. And you guys are right at the tip of the spear on this. So I want to get into that with you. So are you guys going to the game on Saturday? Are you sports fans too? Yeah? Maybe?
It's Arts Month. We're going to be out at about 30 different arts events in the next week. So,
great answer.
And football doesn't qualify as an art. Okay.
We do love the sports too. And the sports economy is also important too.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. So you won't be at the Air Force Navy game. Okay. Got it. But I will be. And what I hope will be a great day for the Air Force Falcons. So the Commander-in-Chief Trophy is on the line. This is step 1. They got to take care of Navy first, and then they'll move on downstream about November 2nd and take care of Army. Then we'll keep that pretty trophy here, which was developed by an artist, by the way, here in Colorado Springs. So stick around for that. But as I mentioned, it is Arts Month here in Southern Colorado. So what does that got to do with our business economy? And we're going to find out from these ladies how they articulate that, and also how other chambers and EDCs across the region are also embracing this topic. Because a thriving arts economy is very attractive for an employer. It means that there's things to do here. There is a variety of things to do here. And it's very exciting when you have a menu of options rather than, we're going to go down to, the stop and go and hang out and kick cans down the road. No mas. Not here in Colorado Springs, and certainly not in Southeast Colorado. We have a thriving arts community, performing arts, visual arts, media arts, you name it. It's happening down here, and it's very exciting. Before we get started with them, we're going to go ahead and thank our friends over at the UCCS Economic Forum. Dr. Bill Craighead, congratulations, sir. You guys put on a fantastic show. And part of almost 350 people joined us at the N Center for the Performing Arts. And they had a great presentation. Because they talk about the economy in such a way that it's relatable to the average business consumer as well as the average individual. And it's applicable science. So it was a very well-attended event. And congratulations to the Economic Forum, the School of Business over there at UCCS. Congratulations. Well done, guys. Other stories in the Business Digest, our new edition just came out. So if you want to go pick it up, go to socodigest.com/subscribe and pick up yours. The digital edition is available to anybody. This month, we're taking on a couple of very key stories, one of which is all the ISPs, all the internet service providers in this region. It's a very crowded space in El Paso County. So what does that mean? What does that mean for us as businesses? What does that mean for us as consumers? And is it working to our advantage? Well, Wayne Heilman seems to think so, and so does Jeannie Devant. They take on that story in the Digest with some great reporting. They've talked to a number of stakeholders in town, including the folks at Underline and Comcast and other organizations who are diligently performing that service for us. Also, CSU, Colorado Springs Utilities, working with regional farmers to develop new water supply equations. So take a look at that story as well. The Pueblo Chemical Depot reimagined for more than just storage. There's some really interesting things happening in Pueblo. We're going to tackle that in our next edition of the Digest. And in Fremont County, that's Canyon City. I encourage anybody to go down there, especially in the middle of the winter, because it's really nice and warm down there. It's the banana belt of southeast Colorado. But there's a new group down there called, well, it's not new. It's been about 10 years, but they're really starting to get wings, and it's called TechStart. And this is a product from Fremont Economic Development Corporation program. It's gaining a head of steam, and you'll meet Mr. Rob Brown and what he calls profit clusters and micro ecosystems focused on individual markets. Very, very cool stuff. So, and of course, we have our monthly professionals on the rise and all kinds of good stuff in between. So check out socodigest.com/subscribe. Get your copy. All right, ladies, let's get into this. Let's talk about what's going on. First of all, it is Arts Month. Okay, so this is day 3. It's Friday. And so it's October 3rd, right? Is that right? Fourth.
Day 4.
I'm a day behind.
First Friday.
It's First Friday. That's right. But I've been a day behind all day. So this is a big deal. Arts Month is a big deal because we get to, gaze our attention and fix our attention on what is actually happening in that. Not just a laundry list of topics and things to do, but what it means to our economy and our workforce. So, Angela, I want to welcome you to the program. Dylan, welcome to the program. Glad you guys are here to unpack this for us because a lot of people just think the arts are that thing over there if they're not into it. And if they are into it, they're immersed, right? And it's an enriching experience. But tell us on the just 50,000-foot messaging, what's the importance of Arts Month?
Well, Arts Month is a moment where the sector gets loud together.
Yeah, very good.
Where we make sure we shine a spotlight on the value that we're bringing all year long to the region's identity and economy and quality of life, to our community health, to our mental health. And so Arts Month is kind of a microcosm of something that's happening all the time, but it's a time when we all sing the same song together and hopefully attract attention to the fact that if you're only looking at art as that painting or as that sculpture on the side of the street, let's use that example,
sure,
as that sculpture in the median, you're missing it. Because what's happening all around that work of art is how it's changing the community, how it's slowing down traffic, how it's increasing safety. And so the arts function around us every day. And that's the really interesting story, in addition to the people who made that work, who are probably local business owners, entrepreneurs right here in our community. So it connects shop local, it connects, function in the region, and it's part of the larger story of our economic future.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. What do you think some cities in the United States have really done this well, aside from what we're doing here? Let's start at what might be the kind of the benchmark of success in this realm.
Well, I think it'd be really interesting to look at Cincinnati.
Okay.
Because they've really thrown in, they have an extremely strong cultural office called Arts Wave. This month, they have the Blink Festival there that attracts hundreds, thousands of people to downtown Cincinnati. I think that cities who have really leaned in to developing things like that centralized festival that pulls cultural tourism, invests in a coordinating cultural office that can help with economic development for creative industries, that can help with getting artists online to grow their business. folks who have really leaned into those centralized ways of amplifying the arts are finding that people are traveling, people are coming with their businesses, and workers want to be there.
Yeah.
Cincinnati's a great example. Pittsburgh has reinvented itself.
It really has. Yeah.
And part of that was a hard lift. I was in Pittsburgh when that was going on in the 2000s. And
that's steel country.
Absolutely.
Coal country. Yeah.
That community redefining itself as a home for robotics, for green building, for a new wave of immigration from Asia, for healthcare and these high-tech jobs. That was so revolutionary, and the arts helped the city to expand its understanding of itself. So I think you could really look across the country. Often, I think mid-sized cities can find it most transformative to lean into what the arts have to offer their definition.
Yeah. Well, let's get to know a little bit about what we're doing here, because this was very, I'll call it Blanche for a while. You know, Colorado Springs, always been a beautiful community. Never has that been a question. What has been a question is once you live here, besides hiking and biking and rafting and some of those great things, what do you do? Okay. And our culinary scene, our music scene, especially in the last year, our performing arts scene has really evolved into something special. So much so that artists are actually looking at Colorado Springs as a place to visit. That's right. Is that an accurate assessment of what's going on?
That's true. We're seeing creatives moving from getting priced out of some other communities, and we're benefiting from that. If we can be a healthy and accessible place for them to stay, that would be awesome. Art Space will be opening its space in the next year. That's affordable housing and workspace for artists in downtown Colorado Springs. Those are initiatives that help us retain the creative workforce that is giving us that reputation as a place that's collaborative, as a place where you can be successful in the creative industries.
And funding the arts is a big part of this discussion, right? I mean, we all have to figure out how to underwrite this because it's difficult for, individuals go to a beautiful symphony hall and they think, well, they're rolling in it. Well, there's a lot of key benefactors out there who are making sure that those types of things happen. So I want to spend some time with you guys in the next quarter educating our audience on the financial aspect of funding the arts and what that looks like from an individual contributor standpoint, as well as from a corporate standpoint, because those corporations, they need the liberal arts students coming out of there strong and equipped, because the communication side, the visual side of their business has to happen. And oftentimes they're niched so well into what they do well that they forget, we got to go out and sell this. So the arts community plays a pivotal role in that. So we're back in a minute with Angela Seals and Dylan Craddock from Copper in just a moment. All right, good afternoon. Welcome back to the second quarter of Business Digest Weekly. I'm your host, Dirk Hobbs. Quick shout out to our underwriters. So Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group, we appreciate you very much because we get to meet cool people like this. They're awesome. And we're going to get to know them a little better and what Copper does. So if in the meantime, while you're listening to this conversation, if you want to go to your browser and go to culturaloffice.org, you can take a look firsthand at what Copper is doing and all about the Arts Month. But they're going to speak about it, too, in just a minute. But before we get back to them, I'm going to give you a few business events in the region that are happening on tonight, actually, October 4th. Cyber First Friday. That's happening at the National Cybersecurity Center over on Nevada. And this is a great place for the cyber peers to share information and learn about the region's fast-growing cybersecurity ecosystem. So it's sponsored by, co-hosted by the Colorado Springs Chamber and EDC and Murray Security Services. So registration is required, so you've got a few more hours to go ahead and register. But go on to the Colorado Springs Chamber and EDC website, and you can get involved in that. Also, on October 17th, there's a company here in town that spun out of CTI. It's called La Vida. And they're a local cancer research program that has their hooks into something pretty extraordinary. And they are putting on an exclusive event on October 17th. That's a Thursday from 4:30 to 6:30 over at Mary Kay Chapman Room, the United States Olympic and Paralympic Museum. And they're going to talk about their groundbreaking advancements in cancer treatment technology. This is pretty extraordinary. So if you're an investor or you're just interested in this realm, this is definitely something you're going to want to be a part of. You can RSVP at info@lahavida.com. Now, La Havida is spelled LAHJAVIDA. And you can either request a link to join it remotely or just RSVP that you're going to come down and hang out with them. Veteran Small Business Conference is coming November 1st at Great Wolf Lodge. You need to register there at veteransmallbusinessconference.com. Also, National Cybersecurity or Security Speaker Series. This is happening on Wednesday, November 20th from 5 to 6:30. And this is a quarterly meeting also hosted by the Colorado Springs Chamber and EDC. So check out their link for more details on that. The BBB is doing a Night of Excellence. Now, I like this event because it really focuses on the lost art of customer service. And it's a fantastic gala. It's Thursday, November 21st from 4:30 to 7. It's going to be at the Polaris Hotel. I don't know if this is their first event at Polaris, but it's certainly one of their first, and it should be a fabulous one. The theme is an Emerald Anniversary, celebrating 30 years of trust. All right, only 32 days to Election Day. Here are just two things we want to throw at you. Yes on 2C. Let's keep our roads smooth and safe and aesthetically pleasing. So yes on 2C. This is a no-brainer, folks. Don't get uptight about it's a new tax. No, it's not. This tax has been in effect since the Southern administration, and it has done an incredible job of filling in those planet-sized potholes that we had back a few years ago. Anyway, they've done a great job. It's a consistent project. You just see the signs everywhere, and you see the workforce out there doing their thing. We've only got about a third of the roadways done. So we need to get the other 2/3 of them done. So yes on 2C. You don't even feel it at this point anymore. We're just taking a few cents out of every $10 you spend in the region, and we're putting it back into our roads. So, and the other one is Michael Allen for district attorney. Okay, so generally speaking, we don't get into picking and choosing candidates. But when it comes to law and order and the economy in the Pikes Peak region, this is a no-brainer. This district attorney's office is prosecuting 90% of the cases brought in by the authorities. 90%. That means they're not kicking it to the curb, looking for some type of overly sympathetic criminal justice reform. They are taking these cases seriously. The police are out there doing hard work, trying to stop crime, trying to prevent crime. They bring them into the DA's office. They take a very close look at them, and they're prosecuting 90% of them. In Denver, for comparison's sake, 30%. 30%. Okay? Now, there is a place for criminal justice reform, but I'm not sure it's on the front lines of the judicial system. So anyway, Michael Allen for district attorney. So those are our only two endorsements. Everything else is up to you folks. Listen carefully to what the candidates have to say and make your decisions. So, but let's get back to some fun news and information. The great folks at the Cultural Office of the Pikes Peak region, a.k.a. Copper. Is it still... You still go by Copper?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right, why not?
It's a friendly nickname.
It is a friendly nickname.
Come on in and be friends.
I have Angela Seals, Executive Director, right over there to my right, and Dylan Craddock. She's the Program Manager for Creative Economy. I'm curious, what is that exactly?
Well, it means a lot of different things.
Okay.
For us, I think we look at, of course, the traditional fine arts, our visual artists, our painters, our dancers, things like that, but also the supportive industry. So architects or maybe even some software designers or gaming development.
There you go.
And that's what makes creative economy really cool is it's any industry with creativity.
Indeed. Well, and it's interesting because, you know, we consider ourselves to be a high-tech town, a cyber town, a Silicon Mountain town, whatever you want to call it. But the need employers have for those creative skill sets, right? I think they're feeling that pinch more than ever because there was so much emphasis in the 90s and 2000s to engineering and math and science, which is great, right? I mean, we need doctors, we need physicians, we need attorneys and other professionals. We also need engineers who can keep bridges up. But you mentioned a few things there, architects and other people that do have that creative aspect as well as the engineering component. But also corporations are looking for some of those liberal arts students. And I had Dr. Maya Whitaker in here from CC talking about this, about how important the liberal arts degree is for corporate America because, A, they can communicate, right, in an articulate manner and get the point across to prospective clients, to prospective investors, and so forth. So there really is a huge role for the creative component to also join the technical component in corporate America.
Yeah. And, I think a lot of people think about storytelling and communication, but it goes way beyond that, too. Those 21st century skills of interpretation, of symphony, of innovation. It's actually in the way you think differently as a creative. And we need that kind of thinking. We have tools that automate things. We don't have tools that can innovate, interpret, and and orchestrate like many differences together into one outcome. And so I would say we need artists in the boardrooms. Yeah. We need artists at committee tables to think about things like transportation, to think about like common challenges, because the way they think is valuable.
Indeed it is. If you've ever been to the Colorado Symphony, they have a program where they invite a bunch of CEOs on stage with the symphony, right? Individual contributors in the symphony. And then the conductor does his thing. And they're all part of this. And what the light, blinding flash of the obvious moment is, it takes a lot of different things to put this thing together and make music, which is a beautiful thing. So we'll see some of that happening. I think folks like Daniel Wachter and John Street are bringing that program down to Colorado Springs as well. So we're going to see some of that, which is really cool. Anyway, back to the arts conversation. How much of our world do you see that has evolved here in Southern Colorado, particularly the Pikes Peak region, with the arts community? I mean, can you speak to kind of where we were maybe 10 years ago versus where we are today?
Well, I think it's an interesting question for me because I was born and raised here.
Okay.
So, when I was growing up, the things I liked to do were go downtown and go to Manitou. And I always enjoyed going to the local businesses and things. But when I left for school, I noticed distinctly when I would come home that there were so many cool businesses in those corridors that really spoke to what young people are looking for. I always point to Eclectic Co. Their co-op model is so cool for a young person to go into because, a lot of young people value shopping local and those relationships. I'm able to talk to makers that, live near me, and then now we're friends and we're going to pottery class together. And I think for young people in particular, they're looking for those more individualized touch points, and that's what an arts business offers. And I've seen it develop across the city. Stomping Grounds in Southeast Colorado Springs, they're rooted in that community idea that coffee is more than just, grabbing your caffeine. It's having, conversations with your barista or maybe going to a sip and pay event. Like those are the things that particularly keep young people here. And I think that's really one of the values of our creative businesses.
Absolutely. And of course, a new evolution, well, maybe not new, but certainly is the wine and painting.
Certainly.
I mean, you said tasting, but it does. It's kind of that gateway for somebody to get out of the house, come and express themselves. And, they always have a blast doing that stuff because it's not in their normal life.
Too.
Yeah.
I think about our food scene downtown, Ephemera dinners. I mean, that is a world-class dinner that you could get in Denver, but you get it here and for a better price.
What's it called?
Ephemera. It's in the upstairs of the Kawadi building, and I just think it's spectacular. It's a tasting menu. They do really interesting, unique, high dining, that kind of stuff, and at a pretty affordable price range. I went for their Valentine's Day dinner with my husband, and we did the wine tasting, and the sommelier brought out one of the wines, and we were like, "Oh, we can afford that."
Nice.
Nice. And it still was spectacular. And very food is a great touch point for people into the arts.
Well, you bring up a good point because the culinary arts component has evolved here tremendously. I mean, no longer are we just a McDonald's and a Chili's. I mean, we've got some spectacular. You got Brother Luck out there. Mitch Yellen's doing his thing. A lot of other great creatives in this realm are turning on the restaurant scene like never before.
Yeah,
so,
couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So Mitch Yellen owns Garden of the Gods Cafe, the Till Bistro, the Pinery, and a couple of others. So it's a great bunch of restaurants. Of course, Dad's Donuts is now online. That is a caloric bomb. Have you ever tried one of those?
I have had one,
okay.
Yes.
They're spectacular, but you definitely don't want to look at sugar for about a month after you eat one of those because they are beautiful and brilliant. But
I think you might be onto an interesting topic, actually, Dirk, because I think the culinary scene is reflecting the shifting demographics of Southern Colorado. So
unpack that a little bit.
So beautifully.
Yeah.
I think we have access to foods from so many different heritages now.
Yeah.
Which you threw Chili's and McDonald's under the bus a minute ago, but
hey, not bad.
But now
the
presence of foods that represent the cultural heritage of people who who are moving here and who have been here for a long time is getting stronger. And that's a wonderful moment of cultural exchange, too. The ability to go try Ethiopian on a Friday night, right? The arts create empathy. And so I think it's important not to underestimate what it means to experience something as meaningful as food from other cultures. And we can do that now in Southern Colorado.
We can. Well, we're going to do a deeper dive here in just a moment with the two ladies from Copper, Angela Seals, Executive Director, and Dylan Craddock, Program Manager for Creative Economy, in just a moment. All right, we're here in the third quarter with Angela Seals, Executive Director at the Cultural Office of the Pikes Peak region. I always kind of stumble over that initially. Of course, Dylan Craddock, who is a native Colorado Springs person. Welcome.
Thank you.
Appreciate you both being here, because what they're doing is they're tying together the arts economy with the prosperity and overall wellness of this community. And at no time before has it been more apparent our need to embrace the arts in all its forms, right? So we started talking about the culinary arts in the last quarter, and of course you kind of teased out the architectural component. I mean, beautiful buildings and beautiful bridges and architecture and streetways are a part of that. But of course there's the usual suspects as well, the performing arts, the visual arts. What else we got out there?
Oh gosh, there's something for everyone. That's something that we always like to say. I mean, there's 250 events in October alone. And then you take that to Peak Radar. How many annual events are there on Peak Radar?
3,000.
3,000. So you can find world-class theater and amazing galleries right here. And people don't have to travel the way they think they do. I think, maybe you don't live downtown. Try spending an evening downtown. First Friday is a great time to do it. Just wander into the galleries and see the art, and you'll be surprised at what you find.
We try to make it easier to explore something new through peakradar.com, which is run by the Cultural Office, but is the region's arts and culture website. But we have guides, like if you want to shop local over the holidays and buy some locally made gifts. There's a market guide. There's a gallery guide of 60 galleries with a map, the interactive map. You can find one near you. So peakradar.com is a great way to, when you get curious, and I'm always telling people, get more curious. Start exploring in your own hometown. We try to make that easy through Peak Radar's tools.
Exactly.
I really appreciate what you're skirting around there, Angela, because one of the things that I've noticed is that because I have a drawing habit, okay? I like to sketch and etch and things like that. When I do that, I sleep better that night, and my relations are just better in the house. They're more fluid and all those things versus when we sit down and watch a movie or TV or we're doing this thing, right? The behavioral health component is such a huge part of the arts, and I think a lot of people just kind of skim over that, right? And they think, well, artists are eccentric, they're different, they're this, they're that. Yes, they are. And it's beautiful, right? Now, they may not be able to balance a checkbook sometimes, right? Case in point sometimes, but they function in a hemisphere of the brain that brings vitality and life and all the elements within it to life, right? And I do feel better. Do you buy into the philosophical doctrine that the arts and a steady diet of that can also affect the broader population in that way?
Oh, 100%. That's why this year for Arts October, the theme is Unite Your World with the Arts. And we chose that really purposely because during this election season, people are divided.
Yeah, we're pretty stressed out right now.
Pretty stressed out.
Yeah.
And so we're not asking you to abandon any personal beliefs or anything like that, but to go try a new arts experience and see how you feel afterwards. There's a stat, it came out of Chicago. They did a arts integration activity in neighborhoods where neighbors got together and they did, paintings on sidewalks and things like that. And afterwards, neighbors reported that they felt 1.6 times more connected to each other. And that's what the power of the arts is. And that's community connection is what then, translates into mental health gains because we're all humans. We all need to feel something. And the arts help us do that. And really directly, they increase our empathy. Yes. There's also a really interesting study of choral singing. That when you are you're literally regulating your voice by listening to the people around you.
that you score much, much higher in empathy from participating in that kind of activity. So we've seen in this community in Pikes Peak region really important work in the arts with the military community.
Okay.
Since we have a large population, we're finding that whether it's spouses and children of military families or active duty or veterans, that participation in learning to play guitar can really help with overcoming trauma and connecting to people in the civilian community, that it's just a nice pressure valve to, and honestly critical to lowering suicide rates, to increasing the ability to thrive after they leave the service.
Yeah.
So we're also working right now in arts education through the cultural office at how arts teachers are seeing mental health issues in children, because arts class is a safe space where some of those things come up, like they don't maybe do in math class. And so our theater teachers and our visual arts teachers and our school yearbook teacher, they're on the front lines of addressing anxiety and depression in children and youth. And they're developing some wonderful skills that in 2025, the Cultural Office is going to be sharing out statewide. What are some coping skills that arts teachers have in helping to support mental health in youth that we can learn from?
Oh, I absolutely love that. You know, and it's interesting because we, in this country, we tend to overcorrect on a lot of topics. You know, too much math, all right, too much science, too much art, right? So we basically shut down the arts in the schools for how many decades? And I think we're kind of living out that void, right? And now we're just really starting to catch up again to where it is an integrated part of our culture, our daily lives, our experience, our food, our buildings, everything, right? It's intertwined. I love that component of this. Help us understand, for the person who isn't necessarily an art consumer or doesn't fancy themselves to be somebody who's, I don't know, qualified to judge another piece of art, right? It's really subjective at the end of the day. How would you encourage them to go to a museum or go to a symphony, right? Cowboy hat and all. How would you do that?
Oh gosh, great question. I mean, we make it pretty easy on artsoctober.com. So say that you're curious about some music and dance. We have a whole theme week dedicated to music and dance. So you can go and scroll through and find maybe a country concert that you are interested in, but that country concert then leads you to go to Lulu's downtown, and now you're hooked on a venue. And so I think it's just getting over that initial touch point and finding where that comfort is for you. Maybe it's, I know where Old Carter City is. I'm going to go into a new local business I haven't been into before and just talk to somebody there.
Okay.
We all can do that.
Right. Small steps.
Small steps.
And not letting people make you feel small.
No.
Right?
Amen, sister.
And we should all feel as empowered at an arts experience as we do at a football game. You were talking about Air Force, right?
Yeah.
When I go to a football game, I may not know an enormous amount, but I feel entitled to cheer.
You don't know what the blind side is?
I feel entitled to boo. I think we have to own our role as audience members to say, this is mine.
Yeah.
This is my community, and my feedback is powering what's happening on stage. And if you own that role, how I feel when I'm experiencing this work of music, this live band, when I'm looking at this sculpture, is valid.
Yeah.
And learning to not let people take that from you and say, and curious about it. Why does it make me feel that way? It's okay if you don't like it.
I agree. And, you put a certain audience in front of a Paul Klee piece of work or a Jackson Pollock piece of work.
Right.
They're going to be scratching their head.
They might not like it.
They might not understand it either.
And why? Is it the chaos? Is it the messiness? What is it making you feel is an interesting question. Yeah. And I think we're too consumeristic where we think, I just want to go and feel good, when you might think instead, I want to go and grow. I want to go and be challenged. I want to go and think some new thoughts or meet some new people. Those are much more open-ended. And even if you hate it, some of my favorite art stories are things that were so outlandish, but boy, were they a memory. And we had a great discussion afterwards at the bar.
That's what a great place to do it, too. I know about bars.
It's freedom. It's for just having freedom toward it.
Yeah. So we don't necessarily have to be right about a piece, or we don't have to like what our friend there says, oh, that's kind of cool. And you're like, I don't get that. Wait, it's just spatterings of paint on a wall. Not for me. I see it differently. And that exchange alone is building community. It's building conversation, and may even come down to a downright argument.
Yeah.
I don't understand what you're thinking, but that's okay, right? I mean, art evokes that from us. The performing arts, we can kind of watch somebody do the human expression through movement, through sound, through voice. Amazing, right? And I think I mentioned to you guys earlier, there's more people under the age of 25 going to the symphony now than have gone in the last 30 years. I mean, it's amazing. So they're drawn to it by something else. You mentioned it might be some of the topical areas that they're covering, like the Star Wars concert or something like that.
I think there's also a reaction we've seen in the 21st century, a resurgence of the maker movement, for example. It's a direct response. Maker movement come out of San Jose Valley with Maker Faire in the 2000s, and huge festivals of handmade, and include technical things like 3D printing and giant robots that shoot fire. The maker movement went national, and maker spaces are national now too. It's a direct response to automation and how much the things we touch are manufactured and impersonal. And so I think the same thing is true of entertainment. And there's something about a swing back toward the human, maybe post-pandemic too, a hunger to hear each other, to feel each other, and to see someone real.
Yeah.
Well, and the younger generation is spending more and more on experiences. So this is something Jonathan Liebert at the BBB talks about a lot. Gen Z and millennial dollars, they're going towards social impact businesses. And that's often what arts experiences are too, because they either give back to the community or they, evoke some kind of emotion. So the younger generation is looking for experiences just like that.
Love that comment. It's Dylan Craddock. She is the manager for, what is it called again?
Creative Economy.
Creative Economy. And Angela Seals, executive director at Copper. We're going to be back in a moment to plug this in for if you're a corporation or an individual and you want to give to the arts, you can do that. Patrons of the arts are vital to this economy, and we want to make sure you understand what that means in depth and how you can get involved and make a meaningful impact on our community. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the fourth quarter Business Digest Weekly. We're having an informed and enlightening conversation with the two ladies across the board from me, both from Copper. This is the culture office of the Pikes Peak region. And this is an important office because it helps us all concentrate on, A, what those assets are, where they're happening, all the good stuff, right? Ticket information, where to go, when to be there. But it also helps us understand the unique dynamic between economic prosperity, maybe even public safety, and behavioral health in the arts and the role that plays in every one of our individual lives. And so we've had a very rich conversation here through the last 3 quarters. So if you want to go back and see this, go ahead and hit the replay button on YouTube or Rumble or wherever this is being seen. And enjoy this conversation because it does give us insights and something of a roadmap to understand how we as individuals and as corporate bodies, whether it's a business or an organization or a community at large, can engage the arts. And I think one very bright example of that right now is the Ford Amphitheater, right, has brought a level of entertainment to the community that we haven't seen here before. And it's a terrific venue. It's an artistic work of art in and of itself. And granted, we're not minimizing. There are challenges with what's going on up there on the north side, but everybody's working at it. But it is opened the door and the eyes of a lot of people that say, oh, including the artists that are touring, they're saying Ford Amphitheater is one of the number one destinations on their list now, okay, because of its unique shape and the way it's designed. And it's giving us a very rich experience here. But that's just one, and that's the performing arts. It's an important one, but it's one. What are some of the other assets here? Let's just go down real quick some of the high-level assets that we have here in this community. A lot of us know of it, but some of us may not.
First thing comes to mind for me is Rocky Mountain Women's Film Festival, which is in October. I believe it's October 18th. It's the longest running women's film festival in the country.
In North
America.
That's terrific,
Which is
yeah.
amazing. Who knew that Colorado Springs had that? Last time I went, I saw a documentary on the making of 9 to 5, Dolly Parton's movie.
No kidding.
And it was with the group that had kind of helped them develop the, message behind it. So it was spectacular. Laughed, cried, all the things. It was great. It's that is one of my most favorite arts assets we have here.
The Ent Center for the Arts opened in 2019, right before the pandemic.
That's
and so
right.
I think it is still yet to be discovered by a lot of people. It's an incredible world-class venue
It really is.
there on the campus of UCCS. And they're presenting local art and also touring art from national touring groups. It's really highly curated. So I would encourage everyone to check out the Ent Center. The Colorado Springs Fine Arts Center, now part of Colorado College, is our taproot of our cultural community. It continues to evolve, and it is coming into a real renaissance era. So if you haven't been to the Fine Arts Center recently, I would say go check out the museum. What's happening in the museum, what's happening on stage, what's happening in the Bemis School of Art is as strong as it's ever been. So get back in touch with that. Annual memberships are so affordable for families. We're seeing a lot of great work happening in theater and many small theater companies that are now spread much more evenly across the Pikes Peak region and presenting whether it's challenging work or just really fun musicals. They have a really nice diversity going on there. I mentioned there are 60 galleries.
Yeah.
The galleries are critical to the creative sector because every one of them represents 50 individual artists, say, right?
Yeah.
And so they're the nodes, the nerve centers for that kind of the visual economy. And I would say that it's also a place where you can still make pretty amazing new impressions, right? I love that about mid-sized cities and mid-sized economies is that they welcome transformation and big ideas, and there's still space. It's not like so set now. And I think if you're interested in coming and making here or coming and experiencing here, this cultural destination, this cultural economy is at a really open form moment where you can come and bring a new idea. If you want to start a new film organization, if you want to come and create a brand new innovative thing, there's space and a really collaborative scene to do that in.
I agree with that, because as a media entrepreneur, that's exactly what we did. We saw something, we wanted to put our fingerprints on it and portray this region in a light that it hasn't been portrayed in typically, right? It's typically the small town discourse and the business club and so forth. But we're saying no, we're opening to the universe. We were talking about this during the break about, how in major urban centers, LA, New York, Miami, Atlanta, what have you, commissioned art is just a part of life, right? So big companies, whether they're headquartered there or not, they will invest in the arts for the purposes of attraction, keeping their office spaces and workspaces attractive and engaging and inspiring, right? But also public art, right? The commissioning of public art. Are we evolving in that sense, do you think?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think there's still more to go. Of course, downtown being the most, I want to say famous, but as the most critical mass of public art, followed maybe closely by Manitou Springs.
Okay.
We don't want them to just be concentrated in single areas, but those two areas have the structure to have a public art program. So there certainly needs to be more done to, help people figure out how the heck do they get a mural on their building.
Exactly.
There's so much opportunity here. There are arts groups and venues that have such a strong following and so much faithful audience that any corporate sponsor could leverage for their benefit.
That's exactly right.
And I would invite listeners who have that kind of sway, whether it's at their own company or are thinking about marketing through sponsorship of events or local assets, to really look hard at arts and culture, because it is just potential. People have such a powerful, positive experience when they're in those spaces, and your brand could be there helping make it possible.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And it happens in sports all the time, right? Sports marketing is a huge endeavor. What about arts marketing? Something along those lines. You mentioned earlier in a segment, Angela, about more people from different parts of the country are moving here. And with that comes the flavors that they experienced in the arts and the experiences that they had in those respective communities. Now we're starting to see a melding of that here in this community. The restaurant scene's one aspect of that. It's certainly evolved very well. What can you tell some of those people that are relatively new to the region that would say, you know what, I really want to plug into the art scene here, but I don't know where to start?
I mean, the best place to start is probably peakradar.com. I know from, my perspective moving back to Colorado Springs, one of the first things I wanted to do was find something to do that wasn't the stuff I grew up doing. And so I used Peak Radar to find the Manitou Art Center, where I then got a membership for free from the Pikes Peak Library District and took a pottery class there.
Right on.
So, that's just one way to get involved. We have an organization directory that's recently been updated. So, gosh, how many are on there now?
1,000.
1,000. Think about how many places you can plug into just there.
Sure.
I'd
And
also
you can search by all different parameters.
By all different
find what you're
parameters,
interested
all
in.
those types of things. So,
Okay.
I mean, it really is a community resource, and I know I'm really proud of it.
No question.
And we just launched a new branch of peakradar.com for arts education
Yes.
for learners of any age and any ability. So we had talked about military and military arts learning, seniors, kids, K-12. This is a new home for that at peakradar.com/artsed for people who want to learn to do something new or get back into something they used to love to find it very quickly now. So we're trying to make these great pathways and guides for the new folks who are moving into the community to quickly find connection.
Yep. And I would say also, what is your message on the benefactors that are out there that are dormant, right? So some of the folks that have moved into the region have some financial wherewithal and they want to participate, but again, they don't know where quite to plug in. So starting with the cultureoffice.org, I think is a great place to go. Understand this organization, what their value proposition is, and what they're here to do. And then let's have a more robust discussion around investing in the arts, whether it's commissioned art pieces for buildings in parts of town, as well as just investing in groups and organizations that put on those arts, like the symphony, like the Philharmonics, and the fine arts centers and other places like that. How do you advise the listener, again, who's relatively new to the region, who has some wherewithal, I really want to participate, maybe to the tune of 50,000, 100,000, or even $1 million into the arts equation here?
Well, I don't think this region has a very strong, at least in the arts scene, corporate sponsorship structure. A lot of our groups are very small, and that's okay, but they're also really collaborative. So if you're curious about how to make the right connections for folks, we're always looking to make those connections for people. That's why the cultural office is operating at that 30,000-foot view of the sector, and we can help, develop something that's rather innovative, because a lot of our arts groups are struggling and they're looking more at earned revenue and not sure where to go.
Exactly.
And we have a long history of great arts philanthropy
We
here in the region, and very generous community.
No question.
I think that understanding how transformative a gift can be should be very motivating for people. To understand just the ripple effect that these groups have, that the cultural office has across all the different topics we've been talking about today, and using the cultural office as a bridge to finding that great place to give or supporting this work that we do across the region is rewarding, it's impactful, and it's very easy to do.
I want to give you guys the last minute to do your best pitch for Arts Month 2024. Hit it.
Well, there's something for everyone. So go visit artsoctober.com and find something new. Whether you're looking for an experience in music, dance, theater, film, poetry, prose, and comedy, visual and culinary arts, I got all the theme weeks in there.
Wow.
You'll find it all.
Impressive.
Yeah.
artsoctober.com.
artsoctober.com.
And throughout the year, we hope you'll visit peakradar.com to just keep getting more involved, stay curious, and participate.
Absolutely. Great message, ladies. Thank you for connecting some of the dots. And I want to have you back because I want to check in on how Arts Month went and see if we've got any new benefactors out there.
Totally.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you for both
Thank
for
you.
being here.
Thank-
Cultureoffice.org is the place to go. And I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. This has been a very rich conversation around the arts and economic prosperity. Thank you very much. All right, folks, we'll see you next week.
You've been tuned in to Business Digest Weekly with Dirk Hobbs. If you'd like to be considered for a spot on our show, email us at info@coloradomediagroup.com